I mean, the other thing is just for everyone to know there's nothing wrong with you. You already work perfectly. You're not broken and you don't need fixing. You may have some funny ideas about yourself or the world, but you have this source of, peace and well-being and mental health and clarity already there within you. And if you are willing to go looking for it, I promise you'll find it. So you have very, very good reason to be hopeful, no matter what you may have been through.
Today's guest is my dear friend and the fabulous Jamie Smart, a Sunday Times best-selling author, speaker and coach. He's passionate about awakening people and supporting them in awakening others. Welcome, Jamie.
Hi, Anita. It's lovely to be here with you.
It's such a pleasure. I'm really excited for our conversation. What is one of the most courageous things that you have done?
Well, it's funny. I was reflecting on that, and I think, I don't know, it's hard to say for sure. I think it's probably recovering from alcoholism, actually, because I really didn't want to do that. I really didn't want to stop drinking. I really wanted to find a way to keep drinking. This is like a long time ago. I don't know, mid-90s. So 25, 27 years ago, something like that. I really wanted to keep drinking. And it was terrifying to me, the thought of not drinking, but it just looked like kind of the right thing to do, having all other options pretty much closed down. So I'd say that's probably one of the most courageous things I've done. But I've got a life beyond my wildest dreams of what I thought was possible back then. So it's like it was worth every struggle, every terror, every fear.
That's really fantastic and well done. I mean, it's challenging for a lot of people, I think. So, yeah, definitely. That's brilliant that you have managed to achieve that and gone on, like you said, to have a fantastic, wonderful experience after that.
Well, here's the funny thing. Thank you for what you said. It doesn't feel like an achievement. I feel like I had to be courageous to do it, but it feels like because that was kind of my introduction to spirituality and that sort of thing. And I feel like it's a gift that's sobriety is a gift that's being given to me. I'm not saying I didn't have to work hard and that sort of thing. Yeah. I did, but I feel very fortunate.
Yeah, because that's my next question. How did you start your journey of self-development?
Well, funnily enough, it was effectively then. So I got into recovery, and pretty soon I became fascinated with the mind. Up until then, so this is like 1996, 97. Up till then, I thought that stuff to do with the mind and psychology and that sort of thing, it was just hippie nonsense, personal development, hippie nonsense. I wasn't interested in it. And suddenly I realized that it seemed like that was going to hold the key to whether or not I had a good life or not. So I had to become more kind of a little bit humble. Mm-hmm. Not that I've ever been known for being particularly humble, but I had to increase my levels of humility. And I started exploring, and I became fascinated with this whole domain. And then it's funny, I was married at the time, and my then wife was part of one of those book clubs they used to have a long time ago, where you would pay like, I don't know, a penny or a pound, and they would send you 10 books and then a book a month for the rest of your life kind of thing. There was a personal development book on the list, and she said, "Oh, would you be interested in that?" And I said, "Sure, send it over." And I started exploring this domain of the mind. And in 1998, I went on a personal development training course, like a 2-day course. And I'm on that course, Anita, and up until that point, I'd had this sense that there's something I was here to do, but I had no idea what it was, like no idea at all. And I'm sitting in this room, watching this person at the front of the room, teaching and training and coaching people in front of the group and telling stories and that sort of thing. And I'm like, I want to do that. And that was it. I was off to the races.
Wow, that's brilliant. Just like to pick up a book, read it, and the impact books have, which we will be talking about your books later. I have them here.
Oh yeah, thank you for bringing those. Well, thank you for buying them and reading them. I appreciate it.
So tell me more about your work as a clarity coach. What does that entail?
Well, so basically, I've been training as a coach and teaching coaches and coaching people and training people for getting on for 20 something years. So since, something 25 years, something like that. And in 2009, I stumbled across the principles behind clarity, and it was a game changer. I had three insights, Anita. My first insight was I realized, everything you've been looking for outside of you is already there within you. And I don't mean like phones and houses and shoes. I mean like the experience of peace and well-being and love and connection and joy and fulfillment that are kind of the motivators, resilience, the things that are motivating all of us. I'd been looking for them in achievements and in wealth and in experiences, and I realized, oh no, everything you've been looking for outside of you is already there within you. And that immediately started reorganizing my priorities. Like I'd been looking in the wrong place. It's like that story about the drunk guy in the middle of the night, and he's on his hands and knees looking by a lamppost, and a policeman comes along and said, "What you doing?" He says, "Oh, I'm looking for my keys." And the policeman gets down and starts helping him, and he asks the guy, he goes, "When did you last have him?" He said, "Oh, a couple of streets over." And he says to the guy, "Well, why aren't you looking there?" He goes, "Well, the light's a lot better here." And that was what I was doing. I was looking for those things, peace, fulfillment, a feeling of success, of okayness, of comfort in my own skin, of love, of joy in the world of stuff and things and achievements and objectives and that sort of thing, because the light's better here, but that's not where it is. So that was my first insight into these principles. Second insight, I realized, the fact that a person can even see or hear or feel or perceive or even have an experience means they have the source of resilience and realization and transformation already there within them. Like it's already there within them. So that immediately changed how I work with clients. It immediately made me incredibly hopeful for my coaching clients, my training clients. And it changed how I worked with them. Because all of a sudden it's like, my job is different than I thought it was. They've already got it. And then my third insight, I realized this is kind of June 2009. So, getting on for 14 years ago, I realized, this understanding is to psychology what the discovery of germs was to medicine. And when I realized that, I called up my office. I said, change of plans. There's principles for psychology. This is a game changer. We're changing direction for the business. And that's what I've been doing ever since. That's all my work coaching clients is leveraging these principles. So for instance, when I work with entrepreneurs, I'll say, how most entrepreneurs have a lot on their minds. They've got a lot of pressure and noise. Well, in clarity coaching, we teach a simple understanding that takes things off your mind automatically. So you have the, freedom and presence and confidence to do whatever you have to do and to enjoy your life. And there seems to be a big appetite for that. So I love coaching people. I love training coaches and therapists. It's one of my favorite things to do. I love working with that group of people and helping them develop their skills and their impact and their businesses. And that's what I do as a clarity coach. And that's why my kind of mission, if you like, Anita, is to awaken people to what they got going for them, to who they really are and how their experience is being created, and to help them awaken others to help them. Because what we find is when coaches can share this understanding with people, when coaches and therapists and change workers, they see disproportionate results with their clients. I remember one of our clarity coaches, Farah Hussain. So Farah was working in a practice, so with a whole bunch of different therapists, and she was overseeing the practice as well. And she trained as a clarity coach, went back into her practice, and at her practice, they measured kind of the scores of all the therapists. So how was the client doing before, self-assessment before and after, and they call them the core scores. Her core scores just went off the chart, like out of completely off the scale of what they'd ever seen before. And that makes sense to me because we're working from a very, very different foundation, if you like, which is the idea that people aren't broken, don't need fixing, already have that innate source of mental health, well-being, high performance, confidence, peace of mind, already there within them. And when you know that for yourself as a coach, it kind of catches, your clients pick up on it.
Yeah. I mean, that's absolutely, and why wouldn't you want that in your life? Why wouldn't you?
Well, it seems that that most of the messages we're hearing from society is pointing in the other direction. Is telling us that, we need to smoke these cigarettes or have this kind of car or wear these kind of shoes or have this kind of figure or that kind of partner or whatever in order to be happy, or this much money or whatever it might be. And the fact is, that's a fundamental misunderstanding about who we are and how our experience is created.
Yeah, definitely. There's too much noise outside, let's say, influences, the list goes on. If you can truly get what's inside you and actually live out of that, I'm sure, the world would be a better place.
Well, I think what we see, my vision, Anita, is, just like you and me and everyone listening to this, we were born to parents who already know that that there's a link between bacteria and infection. So they already know that. And so, but even 150 years ago, nobody knew that. Right? Well, we're in a similar situation with regard to the mind. My vision is of a generation of children born to parents who already know that we have this innate source of well-being within us. But here's the cool thing. That's been my vision for the last 14 years, right? And I've told lots of people about it. But the thing I didn't expect, Anita, which is kind of obvious in retrospect, these days I have clients coming up to me saying, oh yeah, my 7-year-old daughter is one of those kids growing up in that home, or their whole family is growing up in that environment, which is wonderful to see and hear.
That's absolutely brilliant. So, Jamie, you are a clarity certification trainer. What are the 3 principles? I know you've just slightly touched on that.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that, please.
I give people clarity certification, and we're accredited by the International Coaching Foundation as a continuous coach education provider. And the 3 principles, which are the understanding, if you like, and understanding of the principles is what is the foundation for the program I teach. That's definitely the case. So I can talk about that. I refer to them as the principles behind clarity. And here's how I describe them. The principles are a way of describing our innate capacity for mental health, peace of mind, well-being, confidence, resilience, courage, love, connection, high performance when we need it. And the reason they're called principles, this understanding was uncovered by a guy called Sydney Banks. And on the one hand, he saw kind of the thing that all the great mystics throughout history have seen, Jesus and the Buddha and so on. They saw something true about our spiritual nature, you could say. So my way of talking about it, Anita, is I paraphrase a guy called Teilhard de Chardin. I say, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're one spiritual being having 8 billion human experiences. Wow. And who you really are is that one spiritual being. Well, that truth, that spiritual fact is the kind of fundamental insight that all the great mystics throughout history have seen. So that's what Sid saw. But Sid saw something that wasn't available to the Buddha, it wasn't available to Jesus, just because of when they were in history, which is the metaphor of scientific principles is a relatively recent discovery, you know, and so he was able to take this spiritual understanding and communicate it in the form of scientific principles. Now, here's the cool thing. Scientific principles, if you stop and think about it, Anita, you were born into gravity. Me too. We all were. We were born into gravity. And so from your very first breath, from your very first movement, from the very first dribble that runs down your face, you're learning about the fact of gravity. You can't miss it. So the first 5, 6, 3, 4, 5, 6 years of your life, you were on a gravity crash course. And you have such a deep embodied understanding of the fact of gravity now that you benefit from it every day, from every time you pick up a glass to take a drink of something, to every time you get up from your chair or walk down the stairs. You're utilizing that embodied understanding of the principles of gravity. Those are all things no baby can do. You take a baby and sit them on a chair, they topple off. Don't do that. Because they don't have an embodied understanding of the principle of gravity, but we do, right? And you can't miss it as a human being because the principle of gravity is very obvious. You can't see it or touch it or smell it or taste it, but you can't miss it. Like you'll be getting real-time feedback from the world about the fact of the principle of gravity. Whereas if you look at something like germs, they're not obvious. For most of history without knowing about them. They're just as real as the principle of gravity. They're just as relevant as the principle of gravity, but they're invisible. They're not, you could go your whole life and not know about them if someone didn't tell you. In fact, that's what happened to everyone for the first bajillion years of existence, right? Definitely. So with germs, with bacteria, first you've got to make them visible to people. And once they're visible, then people will learn about them, like you and I learn about gravity. So that's how we learned about germs. First, someone taught us to hallucinate them. There's a story about this in Results. I don't know if you remember it, but one of my clients, a lady called Catherine, who lived in Singapore, her little girl went to school, and the teacher said, little girl was 4 or 5 years old, said, today we're going to learn about germs. And the teacher took 2 of the kids, it's a class with like 30 kids in it, and on 2 of the kids, she put that glitter on their hands, like little kids play with that glitter. And she said, at the end of the day, let's see where the glitter is. Well, at the end of the day, every kid and all the walls up to about 4 feet are covered with glitter. And she says, that's what germs are like. So she was literally teaching the kids to hallucinate germs so they could get eyes from it and then learn about it and embody it. So you and I today, Anita, we do all kinds of things without even thinking about it. Informed by our embodied understanding of germs, informed by our embodied understanding of gravity. My job is to help people like that, to help people get eyes for these principles that have such a profound impact on our mental health, on our stress and well-being levels, on our relationships, on our performance, on our experience of life. My job is to help people get eyes for that so that you can experience that well-being and clarity as reliably as you experience your embodied understanding of gravity.
That's fantastic. And absolutely love your analogy of the glitter. And it's so true. Germs, how else would you know?
Well, you wouldn't. Like for most of human history, no one knew. No one knew. They were literally invisible. And how it looks to me is that for most of human history, no one's known about these principles. We've had all sorts of evidence of them, but no one pulled them together in one place until Sid came along. And it's one of the things, I've got the new edition of Clarity out. It's the 10th anniversary edition. So I'm really, really delighted. I mean, any author's delighted that their book makes it 10 years into the future. But what I've done is at the end of each chapter, I've included a section called What the Research Says. And what I've done is gathered up loads of the pieces of research and evidence that you can look at for yourself that will reveal the role of these principles in creating your experience and influencing your quality of life.
That's brilliant. And in a moment, we will be talking about your new book, your new edition of Clarity. What took you on your journey of being an international renowned writer in the personal growth industry?
Well, I wrote a book and a bunch of people bought it. That was the main thing. If I hadn't written a book and a bunch of people bought it, I wouldn't be a renowned writer. And if people in a bunch of different countries hadn't bought it, I wouldn't be an internationally renowned writer. So it's pretty much, as far as I can tell, it's down to a bunch of people thinking the book was good and telling their friends about it.
Mm-hmm. So I've got your books here, and you've written the Book of Clarity, and it's Clear Mind, Better Performance, Bigger Results. And you've got the original Clarity book, you've got a small little Book of Clarity, then you've got Results, and then now you've written Clarity, the new edition. So how is the new edition, the new book, different?
Great question. So there are a few things. Because first of all, I'm talking to the publishers, right? And they said, would you write a new edition of Clarity? It's going to be coming up to 10 years. I'm like, yeah, sure, I guess. So I thought about it and I thought, well, why would I do that? Why write a second edition? Well, there are a couple of things, like the first book, Clarity, when I first wrote it. So it first came out at the beginning of 2013, but I first started writing it in 2011. Okay. Now in 2011, I was just, that's the one. I was just over 2 years into my understanding of the principles, right? So I was new to this stuff. And what I did was I wrote the book I wish I'd read in 1999, because you may not know this, Anita, but in 1999, I was given the book The Missing Link by Sydney Banks. And at the time I was, a leading NLP trainer and all. Oh no, I wasn't even a leading NLP. It's before I even had my NLP business.
Okay.
But I thought I kind of thought I knew everything. And so I read this book and I'm like, yeah, I know that. It's too simplistic, that sort of thing. It didn't capture my interest. And so when I wrote Clarity, I wanted to write the book that would have got my interest, that would have held my attention long enough back in 1999 for me to see something. And I wanted to do it in a way that was kind of business friendly, because as far as I could see, this understanding is so crucial in the business world more than ever. Plus, at the time, 10 years ago, that it was also clear to me that our mental clarity, that our consciousness, that our attention is kind of under attack. Now, it's not under attack from an individual. It's under attack from, we're in the thick of the information revolution. And what information consumes is our attention, right? Now, our attention is the most valuable thing we've got. They say that data is the new oil, but it seems to me that attention is the most valuable thing on the planet, because our attention is the experience of our life, right? And what information tries to do, whether that's information on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or TikTok or the newspaper or the radio or the television or Netflix or or the noise in our head, what information tries to do is absorb our attention. And it was clear to me that at this stage in history, there are two things. Like, I could see that was going to cause problems for people's mental health, right? And I could also see that as a species, we've got really important decisions to make, and we need wisdom and intuition to be able to make those decisions. We need the power of insight, because here's the thing. If you think about it, technology, exponential digital technology, we don't have intuitions for exponential increase, right? Our intuitions have developed for a linear world. Like, we know what 30 linear steps looks like. It's like from here to the end of the hall, or it's from here across the street. But 30 exponential steps is from here to the moon. We don't have any intuitions about that. And yet our world is being more and more influenced by exponential technology. So we desperately need to be able to think in a way that's going to allow us to keep pace with that technology and make good decisions. So I wrote Clarity with only 2.5 years of the principles, no, not even that, 2 years of the principles understanding under my belt. So, and I wrote it as well as I could at the time. But when I went back to it, what I realized is I've seen a lot over the last 10 years. And I wanted to bring the book up to date with my, how I see it now, 10 years on. And I've also had 10 years of field testing this work with clients, with coaches and therapists, with people suffering from various challenges. So I wanted to update it with that. Also, the first edition of the book had various case studies in it. So it gave us an opportunity to do a kind of, where are they now, 10 years later, what's going on? And so we've got updates on many of those case studies, as well as a new chapter 25, called Troubleshooting Enlightenment, which basically we look at 10 of the biggest challenges people face. So it's things like social anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder. What else have we got in there? Fear of public speaking, goals and objectives and results, career change, stress-related illness and stress, burnout, relationships, depression, purpose and direction. So we've got a section on each of those, explaining how the principles relate to it, and then giving a case study that shows how it showed up in someone's life. So that's different. I'd say those are the main things: the new understanding, the road testing, the updates on the case studies, and the kind of different applications of this understanding to some of the biggest challenges that people face.
Yeah, and that's absolutely fantastic. I've only just started reading it, so I can't say I've got very far.
Persevere. It'll be worth it. I promise.
Definitely. Yes. So that's really great. I can understand why you did a second edition now. It makes sense. Why wouldn't you 10 years later? The understanding.
Well, here's the other thing, Anita, that I think is kind of interesting. This is more kind of personal. What I realized as I was reflecting on the second edition is there's a way in which, like when I first stumbled across this understanding, right, it was the best kept secret in psychology. And it was clear to me, Sid Banks died in 2009. And the biggest challenge any movement has is outliving the death of the founder. And so it was clear to me that we needed to get this understanding out there into the world. And there'd never been a top 10 book about the principles, never been a Sunday Times best-selling book about the principles. And I thought, okay, we need to get this understanding out into the world. And so I wrote Clarity, and Clarity was like a seed that I planted in the ground. And all this stuff has grown from it. So my business and all the coaches I've trained and all the, you've probably seen all the people with photographs of the book on their timeline. And that's
including me.
Yeah, right. Thank you. And so that's grown out of that first book. But I realized this new book is a new seed that I'm planting in the ground. So it's kind of a new stage, a new chapter in getting this understanding out into the world. So I'm really, really excited about it.
And the world needs it for sure. So
it seems like it could do with it.
Yeah, definitely. So everybody listening, do go out and get the book. Order it, Amazon. I'm sure we'll talk about where you can get it for in a moment. So, Jamie, what resources do you recommend, daily tool steps to anyone that wants to stop overthinking and have better clarity in their lives?
Well, this may sound strange to people, but the way to stop overthinking is to recognize what causes overthinking in the first place. So in my book, there's a thing I call the clarity equation, which is clarity equals capacity minus contamination. So basically, you have an innate capacity for clarity and well-being and peace of mind. And it's right there at the heart of your being. You already have it. You don't need to do anything to get it or make it or strengthen it or work on it. It's already there. It's like the sun behind the clouds. You've already got it. And the only thing that ever gets in the way of it is what I call the outside-in misunderstanding, the mistaken belief that we're feeling something other than what I call the power of thought in the moment. Now, you can say that as the mistaken belief that we're feeling something other than the energy of life.
Mm.
So we believe, Anita, we believe that we're feeling the past or the future or what that person said to me or our bank balance or our job or all that stuff. But actually, we're just feeling the ebb and flow of a divine energy running through our system. So what I recommend to people is to decide regarding overthinking, the thing that's going to take care of that for you is getting a deeper understanding of these principles. So the first step is to decide whether that stands to reason or not. If it doesn't stand to reason, you don't need to do anything about it. But if it does, just throw yourself into learning about it. So maybe read the book or one of the other great books about it. I've got, like you, I've got loads of podcasts about this, various free resources you can download from my website. There's a YouTube channel. So what you'll find if you throw yourself into this understanding that there's lots of great resources around. Also, I highly recommend Sydney Banks' work as well. It's quite general, so it's very kind of spiritual, you could say, and kind of general. But I regularly listen to his recordings and read his books because I found that studying Sid Banks' work has borne fruit in my own life in so many ways. I mean, so many blessings. And here's the other thing. I wrote clarity as a kind of gateway drug to, they say marijuana is a gateway drug to, I don't know, taking smack or something. I don't believe it, but maybe it is, who knows. But I wrote clarity as a gateway drug to Sid's work. So I encourage you to check out Sid Banks' work. You can, there's a Sid Banks website called, I think, sidbanks.com or sidbanks.org, and you can get his videos and audios for free there. I highly recommend his work.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that.
Pleasure.
So, Jamie, where can the listeners find you online, your books, your podcast? What's your website?
Good question. So head over to jamiesmart.com, JAMIESMART.com. You'll find all my stuff there. My books are on Amazon and also in, bookshops. I think it's in the W.H. Smith's charts starting next week in their travel stores and available at good bookshops everywhere. And the Book Depository, all the online bookshops will have the new edition. You can also get the audiobook version of these on Audible. I'm in the studio to record the audiobook for the 10th anniversary edition at the end of February, so that should be available by the end of March. And the book's on Kindle as well. So just look for Jamie Smart Clarity and you'll find it there. I mean, the other thing is just for everyone to know, there's nothing wrong with you. You already work perfectly. You're not broken and you don't need fixing. You may have some funny ideas about yourself or the world, but you have this source of, peace and well-being and mental health and clarity already there within you. And if you are willing to go looking for it, I promise you'll find it. So you have very, very good reason to be hopeful, no matter what you may have been through.
That's fantastic because, I highly recommend it. I've read the other books, so I know about your work. And anybody that does want clarity in their life, it's a game changer, like you said. Get the book.
Here's the other thing, Anita, that people may find interesting. At the end of the book, there's a free download for the Clarity Self-Coaching Program. So if you read the book and you like what you're hearing, but you want to go a little deeper with it, you can access the Clarity Self-Coaching Program. So that's for everyone who reads the book. But the other thing we're running an event in March, a 2-day event called the Clarity Coaching Experience. And it's for people who want to experience clarity in their own life. It's for people who want to share this work with others, so for coaches and therapists, but also people who just want to use this understanding to improve their own mental health and well-being. And our ticket for that is basically if you share a photograph of yourself with the book publicly on social media and say what the principles have done for you, you get a free ticket to the event. So that's happening in March. So if people want to find out more, that's a great way of doing it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And everybody do that. You'll change your life absolutely for the better. There's no two ways about that. So thank you for sharing that, Jamie, and thank you for giving the readers the 2-day workshop.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Anita. And thanks for sharing your photo. I really like it.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you for sharing your insightful wisdom and knowledge with us today. And by doing so, I know you have helped so many others, Jamie Smart.
Thanks, Anita.
We are all about Create the Courage to Be Fearless podcast here. What is your definition of courage?
Well, when I think of courage, I just think of like, if you know what the right thing to do is, then just go do it. If you know what the right thing to do is, but you feel scared, then you need courage. Now, but the cool thing is you have courage. And the beautiful thing is when you do courage and do the right thing, then all of the courage you use kind of gets transformed into confidence. So it's a great way, actually, to, if you want to become super confident, just make a list of all the things you know are the right thing to do, but you've been scared to do until now. Then go do them all, which will take a bunch of courage, and you'll be very confident afterwards. Or there's a good chance you will be anyway.